The Athens City Planning Commission meeting. It is Thursday, January 6th at approximately 12:04. Scott, I think that time is hopefully correct for a change. Yep. Okay. We do have 4 commissioners present, so that does establish a quorum for today's meeting. The next item on our agenda is to administer the oath for anyone who's here today who wants to speak to any of the communications. We don't have cases today, but we do have 2 communications. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that you would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before the Planning Commission today? Okay. I got to remember my right hand. The next item on our agenda is the election of the 2022 officers, as we need to have a nomination for the chair of the Planning Commission as well as the vice chair. I am willing to continue to serve as chair.
So I will nominate you to be chair for 22, basically for 22, right?
Correct.
Okay, for 22.
I second that.
There's a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Vice Chair, I would like to nominate John Katowski to serve as the Vice Chair for the Athens City Planning Commission.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any communications or discussions? Hearing none. Again, this would be for 2022. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Wonderful. Disposition of the October 21st meeting minutes. Hopefully people have had a chance to look over these. We do still have, since Director Stone, you were not here, we still have a quorum to go ahead and approve the minutes.
So I will move that we accept the minutes as presented for the October meeting.
All right, we have a first.
I'll second that.
And a second from Austin Phillips. Any discussion, anything that anybody saw that needs to be amended?
Nope, I thought it looked pretty accurate to me.
All right. Hearing nothing, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
And 1 abstention. It passes the disposition of the minutes. We have no cases today. We do have 2 communications. So the first communication that we have is the Armitage Road Solar Field. I'm going to turn this over to Director Riggs if you want to. I'm not going to turn it over to Director Riggs. I'm going to turn it over to the City Planner, Paul Logue.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year, Planning Commission. The project, the proposal that you've got before you, we've been in communication with some folks. There's a purchase power agreement, I believe, and they're here to speak more in detail about this. Looking at the Armitage Road area, was initially proposed for a golf course at part of the University Estates project. The land is zoned for open space. There's interest in putting in a large-scale solar project there to help offset the electricity, or to generate electricity for the Ohio University campus. I believe it will generate about 25% of the university's electricity load at this location. They can correct me if I'm wrong. And they want to talk a little bit about the project, but also some of the issues that we've run into. David and I have had I think at least 1 meeting with them face-to-face, and then a few phone calls and Zoom calls to discuss the project. One of the bigger issues that we're running into really is related to the zoning for the piece of real estate as open space, and how to allow for a project like this that has, in our view, or at least in my view, a lot of benefits to the community and to goals of the city and the university, while also managing our land use regulation scheme. So I believe there's some representatives here who would like to speak in more detail about that.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Austin Musser. I'm an attorney with Bricker and Eckler. I am kind of helping shepherd these guys through the zoning process. I do a lot of zoning work. I've worked actually more often on your side of the table in Southwest Ohio. I think what makes the most sense is to have these guys present the project and kind of what they want to see there, and then maybe I can talk to you about the options that we see available to try and put solar here and get your feedback on that.
Can I approach with some documents?
Absolutely.
Good afternoon. I'm Brent Boyd, Chief Operating Officer of Solar Power and Light. We're based out of the Dayton, Ohio area. Thank you, and it's an honor to have us here this afternoon. Wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the proposed project and how it came to be and sort of the context of the project. We successfully were awarded a project by Ohio University, which resulted from a national RFP bid. That award was made roughly October of last year. It was roughly a 6 to 9 month process. We have site control of the roughly 100 acres on Armitage Road, which is adjacent to the university's Innovation Center, and we are proposing to build a roughly 17 megawatt project on that site to, as Mr. Logue mentioned, that would power approximately 25% of main campus's load. We're prepared to make a $15 to $20 million investment to build that project and maintain and manage that project over a 25 to 30 year period. This project also creates tax revenues for Athens County, which makes its way to the local school districts and fire and police departments. So we're excited about the opportunity to invest in Athens County. We think Athens County is the birthplace of solar for Ohio. A number of solar companies here, a lot of advocates for solar in the region as well. So we're excited. We think the university is excited. Miss Elaine Getz is here this afternoon representing Ohio University. She, I believe, is the sustainability director for the university, who headed up the RFP for that project. One of the things that we're also contemplating with the siting of the solar at Armitage Road, given that it is currently zoned open space, is to add other sort of community amenities and benefits. We're not quite sure what exactly that would be. We're working with the city planners to navigate that, but some of the thoughts we had for that site is perhaps the addition of dog parks, education walking trails for the community to be able to walk in and amongst the solar, to understand solar technology, its benefit to carbon reduction and the production of clean energy, education and workforce development opportunities. You may not know, but solar's installations is the #1 fastest growing job in the country now. And as we as a country make a shift to carbon-free energy, we think there's going to be a 20 to 30 year runway for high-paying jobs. And so this education trail would educate individuals who might be interested in going into that industry. We also intend to plant pollinator gardens in and amongst the solar array. Helps with vegetation management, acts as a natural pollinator for bees and butterflies, which is good for the environment as well. And so we think that the roughly 80 to 100 acres of land would be a great sort of nature reserve to build that. And that's sort of state-of-the-art for solar these days, building pollinator gardens and fields in and amongst the solar panels. We also have an agreement and letters of support and interest from Ohio University to do certain types of agricultural research on this land, algae development and research. Professor Jesus Pagan has written a letter to us expressing his interest to do research in and amongst solar panels to sort of talk about how you can beneficially use solar panels for certain types of agricultural research. And so not only are we going to be producing clean green energy produced locally to power the university, we also see the opportunity for the university's research staff to benefit from this as well, pursue state and federal grants that would back this type of research. And so in essence, that is the project. I'm sorry, Greg Akers is our Director of Business Development. He's also with Solar Power and Light. So Greg actually is born and raised in this region, so he has a special interest and heart for this project as well. His family actually continues to own farmland in the region, although he now resides in the Dayton area. Greg, would you like to have any further words?
Those were pretty good. I'm okay with it.
Unless there's any other questions or anything, that's all I had to say, and I think Mr. Austin will have further words to say about the zoning matter.
Do you guys currently own this land? Did you say, did you already purchase the land?
We do not, no.
Oh, okay.
Brent Hayes owns the land.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll reserve my question for after we hear from you.
And I have a question actually about the potential research and such. And it's somewhat of a statement. This is the city's source water protection area. And obviously, a solar array is a permissible use in the source water protection area regarding that particular aspect of the city's code. However, there is some regulation on agriculture in the source water protection area, particularly related to herbicides and pesticides. So, my gut feel is what Dr. Pecan is going to pursue is not, a high use of herbicides and pesticides. However, that would be a consideration.
Sure. We're not planning to sort of use the property on Moss for farming or agricultural use. It's really a designated area for him to perform certain types of research that I would assume does not damage or pollute the land.
Yeah,
That would kind of be counterproductive to.
It would,
the whole-
and then the other, with the switch to pollinators, my gut feel is it's, there's probably quite a few invasive species in that area, and being able to switch to pollinators sometimes requires application of herbicides, and it's just something that's regulated. So I guess my point is, because it being the source water protection area, that's something that we'll have to take an extra look at when it comes to that point in the project.
Sure. And I'm thinking that, generally, when you talk about doing things like this, it has to be approved by zoning as well.
Certainly zoning, but, once it's there, the zoning process has stopped.
Okay.
And it's operating, that, the source water protection, and everyone's pretty hyper-focused on that here in the city, so I don't think it would pass unnoticed, but that's just a consideration.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Gentlemen, if I may, I went ahead and printed off from your code just some sections, I copied from the code some sections, and there's also a red line of a proposal there to talk about. Just so we're all on the same page. Thank you. So as I reviewed your zoning code, I was pleasantly surprised to see that it actually talked about solar. My experience in most of Ohio is that most zoning codes are just completely silent on it, and you're basically starting from square one, really educating people on the benefits of solar and why it's a positive generally, before you can even get to where do we want to put it. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that there, and see all the messaging that the city puts out on being a solar-friendly community and really seeing the benefits of solar. The difficulty that we have is just that the property is zoned open space. Solar is permitted as an accessory use throughout the majority of the city, but open space is not one of those zones where it's called out as permitted. So it starts out as an accessory use in an R1, and then it waterfalls down through most of the other zoning districts in the city. Open space is kind of its own animal, and it has its own list of permitted and accessory uses there. So as I was looking through to try and figure out what the best way would be to propose this to the city as a use, we considered the option of rezoning it. We obviously are working with the university, so there's some more aggressive options that talk about when cities and other public entities have a conflict on zoning. We don't really want to go down any of those routes if we can help it. I think the rezoning option, the one that would make the most sense, would be a manufacturing district. I think we could probably qualify under, that's a really broad list of uses that are permitted there as a principal use. I think we probably could fit there if we needed to, but I can't imagine, just looking at the map, that anybody wants to rezone this property on this side of the river to manufacturing. So as we met with staff and tried to talk through our various options and alternatives, staff mentioned to us that, hey, we probably do need to at least consider accounting for these types of solar projects in our code somewhere. I know that the city is doing its own solar project out towards the east side of the city. And so as we talked through that, I said, we'd be happy to propose that, as part of our application. If we can kill two birds with one stone, we're open to that, as opposed to just doing an application that really only talks about this property. To be honest, we're neutral on which direction we go. Whether we try to revise the zoning code to allow for this under the current zoning, or whether we apply for some sort of a rezoning, and then likely a variance of some kind would be what we would need. So the proposal that, as we sat down and came up with, looked through this is, I actually think that solar, especially if you are talking about some of the recreational amenities, the walking trails, the signage and educational stuff that they're talking about putting in, I think that actually fits relatively well with the open space. Solar of this scale, there's obviously the installation. There's a little bit of maintenance, but there's really not much traffic. There's no dust. There's no noise. There's not a lot of impact on neighbors arising from an installation of this sort. So the proposal that we had was to add this in under the list of principal permitted uses within an open space zone. I know there's not a lot of other ones within the city, but there are a few other open space zoned properties. But requiring that there still be some connection to some of the other uses that are permitted in the district. So whether that's resource preservation, I think there's an argument that this is resource preservation if you look at it on a global scale. But if you're looking just at we want to leave the trees and the dirt where they are, I think accounting for some percentage of the property, if you want to put in an installation of this ability or of this sort. Accounting for some percentage of the property to remain for the other uses that are permitted in this district, I think makes sense. And we're very open to that. In fact, Brent, when he drew up the site plan, before we even talked about that, that was something that they wanted to do. They wanted to put in some other amenities in here. So that's the proposal that we have. I'm happy to talk about it. We're happy to get feedback from you all as to what you think that would be most receptive, the city would be most receptive to, and most beneficial for the city. If the planning commission and if you think council maybe doesn't have an appetite for a zoning change to account for this, we'll go back and we'll figure out an application for this specific site. But we just want to present the project to you, introduce you to it, and get any feedback that you might have.
I've got a question and then a general comment. I know that for solar arrays, a solar farm of this size, would there have to be fencing around this? And my reason for asking is we're talking pollinators, we're talking potential research facility down there, a dog park, which all would require access in some way or another. So how would that work with this project in having to have a perimeter fence around the boundary of the solar farm
So
itself?
my understanding, and these guys know the technicals more than I do, my understanding is the arrays themselves need to be fenced, and so we would have a fence around each set of array panels, and then the trails and the other things would be kind of in and among them.
That's
So-
correct. There are a series of wetlands on the property, and so there wouldn't be a contiguous perimeter fence around the 100 acres. We would have a series of maybe 2 or 3 separate fences that provide perimeter for certain areas of the solar panels. And as Austin said, in and amongst those 2 to 3 different fences, we see weaving walking trails and pollinators throughout that
Okay,
approach.
thank you. That answers that. It's good to know, because again, I do know that these do require fencing around them. Here's my general comment. And I'm going to, for the record, I want to read the first sentence under 230409, permitted uses in open spaces. General conditions. Land which is to retain as open spaces may be used for recreation, agriculture, cemeteries, resource protection, and other purposes specified under this section. The City of Athens is committed. City Council brought forward a resolution in 2021 indicating that we are a city that wants to see a reduction in our carbon emissions by 50% by the year 2030. That's a tall order for a city our size to be able to accomplish that. That's in reference to the 2010 carbon emission levels, which we worked with a group called Perfection Group that came in and looked at all of our city lights and building envelopes and whatnot. And so we have the data to support that. In my opinion, it is a project like this that is going to get us well on our way to achieving that carbon emission reduction and then some, I believe. I think we'd surpass it. We'd clearly surpass it with a project such as this. So in thinking about it and thinking about the one section in here that talks about resource protection, to me, reducing our carbon emissions as a community, that is resource protection, because we are protecting one of two elements that we as human beings cannot live without: air, and clean water. Certainly we need food. We'll get to that, in another meeting, another time. And what this project represents to me is one of several initiatives that we are looking at here in the city of Athens. We look at the solar array that we have at the water treatment plant that is feeding directly behind the meter, along with a microgrid, to where, forbid we were to lose complete power, at least we'd be sustainable for a longer period of time than we were a year ago with being able to have that under operation. We are exploring our own 2.5 megawatt solar array. That's something that has been presented to council. It's on, we'll see what 2022 has in store for us. So that all said, I am certainly open to looking at whichever way this needs to go, whether I'd like to hear the opinion of the other commissioners, whether it is a zoning change or if it's clearly putting in open spaces, language that, again, in my mind, is resource protection when we're talking about solar. I would probably feel the same way if it was wind. Unfortunately, we have hills and hollers, and that's just not the most conducive form of alternative energy that we've got going for us. Microhydro someday in the future, I don't know. I kind of dig microhydro. Is the Hocking River reliable enough in terms of its flow? Probably not. But again, not a renewable energy source that, in my opinion, is off the table. I'm going to cede the rest of my time to the other commissioners for any comments, questions.
I would say that the project excites me. I would like to see the city do more with that. They put in a solar array at the community center, which I think was a wonderful use of to take advantage of the parking that is under it, and continue to have a dual use for that property. And I just think this is a great idea. I mean, I would be very supportive of that.
Yeah, I would as well.
My only, it almost seems like in terms of doing this, I don't know how long it would take to change the zoning regulations to include your red bar in there. It may be easier for you guys to proceed and try to get a variance and allow the city to parallel, maybe promote doing something. I don't know, just a thought there with
We
regard to
talked
that.
about the mechanics of this.
Uh-huh.
Maybe a couple different approaches. Probably the ideal one would get it to be explicitly stated is they've proposed here in this that a parallel approach could be to go ahead and proceed under the process of doing it as a variance, citing the language about the resource protection. In that case, it would go to the BZA. Is that correct? Yes. Calvin? Yeah. So, that might be the best approach from the beginning. And then in parallel, go ahead and get this added just in preparation for future projects. Yeah. So,
That's kind of my feeling as well with that. But
I have a question. It's something you said about, and this is specifically to your expertise. Having worked for the city for a number of years, I've had a couple occasions where we've had a disagreement with the university when it comes to zoning. Mm-hmm. And you talked about more aggressive options when two public entities disagree. Now, my understanding with this project is the land is owned by it's not owned by the university. And ultimately, it's not being leased by the university. It's being leased by a private entity that then is selling the electricity to the university. So are those aggressive options still applicable in those particular situations?
I think there's two answers to your question. I think they could be. I think, that line of case law is, in my experience, it usually comes down to a staring contest between the two entities, being frank. And again, I've usually been on the local government side dealing with counties in those instances. I think the second, answer is we could probably adjust the deal if we had to. I think for a variety of reasons, we'd rather not. We'd rather keep it structured as is. But I think if there was no other option, I think that's something we could look into.
Interesting. All right.
To address the ownership issue.
Sure.
Because I do think if OU owned it and leased it, I think that would be, it's a different question to your point.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is a different question. I mean, basically, the university just has to explain to the city why they can't follow the city's zoning if they own the land and want to do something with their land.
Right.
And they have to do it in this forum, and that's the extent of it. It's a whole different ball of wax when there's private entities involved that are ultimately making a profit
Yep.
on the proposed use, that I don't know that the situation would be as such that they could do that in a zoning.
I don't disagree with you. It adds a lot of gray to it. And again,
We don't want to do it either.
No.
I support this project, but, I wanted to make a point to say that, we take our home rule seriously here. We work together very, very well with Ohio University. In fact, it's better than it's been in, my entire time here. And I want to see this project go. But, last thing we want to have happen is say, well, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Without following your laws.
and please
So-
don't misinterpret that as
Okay.
a shot across the bow. That's
Yeah, very
definitely
good.
not what it was.
Very
It was really
good.
just
Very
saying,
good.
this is the range.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Okay. All right.
Any other questions or comments? All right. In closing, I guess, what I'd like to say, because you kind of opened it up with, in looking at city code and identifying the fact that we have really kind of unshackled a lot of our residential solar via SolSmart. I have to give credit to SolSmart. I think it was one of the smartest things that the city of Athens has done in quite some time, to where we're very conscious and diligent about making sure that we're cutting through the red tape for residential solar here in the city. The other thing being that you may already realize is that, and again, this is another example of the dedication of the city as well as the citizens, that 76% of the citizens voted to have a carbon fee attached to their utility bill for municipal solar. Again, that's not for this project. Couldn't be applied to that, but I'm very much in favor for this project moving forward, and I appreciate the commissioner's questions and comments. Yeah.
One other thing, and I talked to the staff here earlier, sir, the irony is that right across the river from this is the West State Street Park, which truly is open space that's used for, ball games and, dogs running around and everything else. That's zone manufacturing, this would be absolutely permitted, no problem. Meanwhile, we've got this underutilized land across the river, where this is an ideal use and it's not explicitly permitted under the zoning, so, go figure.
You also have, if I can interject on that, for open space zoning, when you look at the things that are allowed to be on there, well, like golf courses are allowed, and I would assume if you need to build a clubhouse and equipment storage garages and things like that on a clubhouse or at a golf course facility, if the owner of a golf course came forward and said, can I put solar panels on top of my clubhouse, we would say, of course. We wouldn't even think twice about it, or on top of their parking lot or something like that. And so there's you can use it as an accessory, even if the use may be something that might have other offsetting, more of a negative impact on the environment or on the open space or something like that, but as a principal use, we kind of scratch our head with this. It should also be noted, of course, that our zoning code and this type of a land use has never really been considered as far as, it's always just kind of been assumed that coal is going to be what we get, or we're going to come up with rooftop solar all over the community, and rooftop solar is not happening very rapidly across the U.S., and at least in Ohio it's not. Athens County actually has one of the highest rates of rooftop solar in the state, higher than some of our larger municipal counties with a lot more population in it, and there's still not a lot in Athens County. You can drive down the street and see how few people actually have solar, and so getting us this far with projects like this, to Mayor Patterson's point, are going to go a big way towards achieving a lot of our goals.
Mr. Logan, I'm really glad you brought up that point about golf courses. I know that we had discussed that some time ago. In here is also swimming pools, you know, so you look at some of the things that are permissible.
Right.
They all require ancillary buildings of some type to be associated with them. And so to your point is well taken, that, you know, if there was a clubhouse with a pool that has a pool house and so on and so forth, and they say, yeah, we won't put
Yeah.
solar on top of those, yeah, great points. That would be a huge swimming pool and golf course. Well, I mean, golf course, 18 holes.
Did you say 20 to 25 years? Is that correct, roughly?
Yes, the power purchase agreement with the university will have a base level of 20 to 25 years with the possibility to extend, but we are leasing the land for 50 years, so we anticipate, even if the university were no longer interested in the contract after 25 years, the Clark Street substation is closer than the university, so we would put the energy on in front of the meter to continue being able to utilize the asset.
Oh, so these units will last 50 years then, or more?
They're warranted for 25 years, but they have a usable life of 30 to 40 years.
Okay.
And from an investment standpoint, it's sort of like if you own a big asset, you're going to continue to invest in it, integrate the latest technologies after 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
So it's the siting and having control of the land that's the most important part to be able to continue to utilize the asset for arguably 50 years.
Cool, thank you.
Great. Well, we will look forward to this coming forward again as a case, because that's the next iteration of this process going through the planning commission.
That's to change the zoning code if we come as a case. If they go via, like a parallel path to the BZA and seek a variance, it wouldn't need to be a case, right? They could proceed with that.
Unless you choose to go dual path, where you wanted to make all of the open space have this for future, because this probably won't be the last
Sure.
solar array that we see. So you may want to think about doing a dual path here.
Yeah, we can talk us about that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. All right, well, moving along, and maybe this will include solar panels as well. This is Title 41 for 960 East State Street, Commercial Development, RPG Management. Director Riggs.
Thanks, Mayor, members of the Planning Commission. This is 960 East State Street. There's actually two addresses here, or will be two addresses. We're looking at two projects, two different buildings that'll be have the same access point. And so staff had actually asked that you consider these two projects together. They'll be built and constructed together. They'll have similar issues with traffic and with the slopes on the back. As well, I wanted to point out that the applicant has also requested City Council to approve a Title 49 special use of the public right-of-way to allow parking in the right-of-way on East State Street, although that has not yet gone to City Council. It should be coming up early this year.
It's like the noses of the vehicles creep into the right of way on the south side. 'Cause the right of way's like right behind.
It's a big right-of-way there.
Yeah.
And so you see the parking that's located right against East State Street. Most of that against East State Street will be in the city's public right-of-way. The idea for that was that we know that there may be some soil conditions on the north side of this property that we were concerned about, and by moving the whole project to the south, we reduce the amount or the impact on that hillside, so we don't have to worry about so much about slope stability, et cetera.
Anybody from those representing RPG?
My name's Jared Decker. I'm here on behalf of BPM Company, as well as our business partners, RPG Management. I just want to make sure, I can't see what you're looking at, but I have the most current version.
If it was what you submitted yesterday,
Perfect.
they have it.
Perfect.
So credit union.
So, What we're proposing here is, as you can see, two buildings. One is 4,226 square feet. That's a two-tenant building we think will be anchored by a national coffee chain. The other, the freestanding building, 2,325 square feet. So that does put us at a total of 6,551 proposed square feet on that site. Do believe we've met the city's parking requirements, zoning requirements. We, as developers, don't see any issue with the access point. So similar to the solar project, just wanted to get this project introduced to you folks today and field any questions that you might have.
I do have a question pertaining to, and this is probably more for,
It's private way,
okay,
so they'd have to have an easement.
gotcha. Access the apartment complex. And it has to do with both of these builds will have drive-throughs associated with them?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That's
with
correct.
that, my question becomes the obvious. Where are we in regards to our zoning code when it pertains to a drive-through and residential neighborhoods?
We looked at that, and I don't think that is an issue for this zone, but I'll double check that.
Please.
My understanding that is permissible in the B3.
I'll double check, yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah, I know it's permissible within a B3.
It's proximity to the
It's,
residential
but
zone.
it's the proximity to any other, is it R1 through R3 or R1, R2?
It's R1
R1 and R2. Thank you.
Yeah, it's proximity to
I think we
R1
looked
R2 for drive-throughs, and I think that R2s are, R1 and R2s are far enough away here. I think that's something to
Okay, we'll just double check on that.
There are some houses up behind it, aren't there?
Yeah, but they're zoned, I think they're not zoned to fire.
Okay, okay.
And some of those houses are outside of the city corp limits, so they
Okay.
wouldn't have a zone associated with them. I'm sure we looked at that, but I will double check to make sure.
And so what you're saying is this dotted line here on the front, at the front south edge of the parking, that's really not the property line?
Or it's not the right-of-way line. I think there's a
Oh.
highway easement that may go beyond,
Okay,
That's correct, yes.
okay,
Yeah.
so that might be the property line for this one, not the
okay.
East State Street right-of-way is. I had a couple questions. Is this gonna be two parcels when it's all said and done, or one?
It is. We would propose to put each building on
You're
its
gonna
own
split
tax
the same
parcel
parcel.
with some shared easements.
And that was my point. There'd have to be shared access easements for that one drive.
Sure.
Just so that there's not a conflict in the future. Also, on the west side of the building, you propose an access to the adjoining private property parcel there. Have you spoken to the owners of that about that access and gaining an easement from them, basically, as an outlet?
So I guess it's the western edge of that drive aisle. What that is actually an 18-foot right-of-way on our property.
Is it?
And that right-of-way was implemented to benefit the house at the northwest corner of this drawing.
Gotcha.
So if we were to use that, we would make it a one-way, it would be an exit only.
It's basically at the escape in case you
Right.
want to pull through, you pull out. And so that actually sits up, that white ends up ultimately being your property line.
Correct.
Okay, I see.
And I don't know that access point is necessary or will come to fruition. We kind of put it on there as, hey, it fits, if we need it, maybe it's there, but I don't think it's a make or break for the project.
It might be useful,
It might be.
certainly from a public safety perspective, if, just another access. We've had instances in the past where, there's only one way in and out of the parcel, and then you close it, and then you gotta get something back there. That might be a good thing to do.
Right.
Another question that I have for you, have you looked at this, in particular, the utilities here, specifically the sewer? The sewer situation here is not quite as straightforward as it would seem. It's a force main in front of this property that is flowing from east to west, with the entrance to the gravity being a point at the extreme southwest corner of this property. So specifically that 2325 square foot building, the the building to the east,
Uh-huh.
you know, access to that gravity sewer would be something that you should do some due diligence on to make sure that you can get into it with gravity so you don't have to pump.
You're saying the tie-in point is at the southwest corner?
Southwest corner, yeah. Everything in front, I mean, there is a sewer in front of the property. It's a force main.
Got it.
And so, you know, getting into it, you couldn't get into it without pumping.
Right.
Unless you run gravity across, you know, that eastern building all the way over to that. I just encourage you to look at that and see, as you get into design.
Sure.
See how you would do that. And my only other point, this is a comment, this is, for my fellow commissioners, this has been a parcel that's been underutilized for a long time, and it's good to see some development here. I'm familiar with the traffic out here, and it's not nearly the, you know, basically once you get east of Walmart, the volumes drop significantly on East State Street, so I don't see, even though they're drive-throughs, I don't see the trips generated out here being a problem, and it's good to see these businesses go into this otherwise underutilized parcel. This is exactly what kind of, you know, what this is zoned for, what's supposed to happen out here. I think historically the problem has been, it was a gas station, and, you know, people always worry about, you know, doing anything with an old gas station, and then the slope stability on that northern side. So it sounds like they've got a plan to approach that. This will generate some capacity fees for the city, for water and sewer, you know, when they go to connect to the system as well. So I think this is, you know, I don't have an objection. I just ask that you do your due diligence when it comes to seeing how you're going to get into those utilities.
Certainly, and just for the record, Pickering will have all of our civil engineering work on this, so were anything to come to light, we may be back in front of you looking for help or some sort of guidance from the city on that front.
Probably don't need to come to planning commission. You probably do that through administrative staff. Yeah.
Okay, and then we do, our geotechnical engineers are actually out there this week, and they are going to provide a slope analysis on that hill, try to mitigate any concerns on that front.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be nice not to see gravel going down East State Street. Just a question, maybe this is more of a design philosophical question. You know, have you ever considered having the parking in the rear as opposed to parking right up front? And showcasing the two buildings themselves if they are going to be designed where they're aesthetically pleasing or whatever. You know, it's a conversation that I know the Planning Commission has had years ago. It's something that has certainly been communicated by one of our former city council members, is looking at parking areas and where buildings are located. Just a thought of having
Sure.
parking in the rear as opposed to the front. I think from a business standpoint, it always looks good when your parking lot is full, which attracts more people.
Right.
Hey, there's something cool going on here.
And we have, one of the things we find as retail developers is when you start to modify the prototypical layout of a national store, they get really, really squirmy. And so in order to put the parking in the rear, you'd also then have to put the main entrance of the store in the rear. And now these patios that they design are sort of facing the hillside, no one can see them, and so we try to avoid upsetting them as much as we can. But I just don't know from a business perspective if that would be acceptable to these tenants. I'm impartial, frankly, front or rear. But the main goal is to keep the parking near the main access point.
That's fine. It's not a deal breaker on my end. It was just a question.
Sure.
So of the three tenants, two of them would have drive-throughs, the third one would be a non-drive-through operation, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it would also not be a restaurant operation. It's designed to be something less parking intensive, you know, like a cell phone, a bakery, something that doesn't compete with the parking hogs already on the site.
Okay. Hearing no other questions?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the idea of utilizing that property better. Mr. Stone, I think that's a good point.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you, appreciate the time.
Thank you. So this will,
Be a case.
we will see it as a case moving forward in hopefully 2 weeks or longer. Let's see, reports from city planner and director of development and zone enforcement.
I just have one item this afternoon for you all to be aware of. The city did receive late or last month updated preliminary FEMA flood insurance rate maps. As many of you, I know Mayor Patterson and Safety Director Stone are well aware. We also had preliminary maps we received in 2013 that were never adopted at the federal level because of issues upriver from us relating to the maps. And so we do have, they've reissued new maps to us. There's very little change from what was given to us in 2013 to what they provided to us at late 2021. David and I just got off a phone call with FEMA and ODNR's water or flood office this morning, right before this meeting, to talk about the pathway forward with the process for adoption of those maps. It'll probably take about a year, roughly from now, until those maps are adopted at the federal level so that we can use them for regulatory, for permitting. We're trying to figure out if there's ways to try to manage some of that, because like I said, the maps have effectively, the preliminary maps are more or less the same for the city of Athens today as they were in 2013. And so as many of you know, there's been a lot of frustration relating to those maps pending for so long. So we're coming up on 9 years in March for those maps. And so we're trying to figure out the pathway forward to better assist local development and assist us as regulatory bodies to make sure that we're giving the best information to our constituents and to our community. So we do have that on the agenda next month or next week, Mayor Patterson, for the Regional Planning Commission, since we'll have the county commissioners and hopefully the representatives from Nelsonville there talking a little bit more detail about the maps. I'll bring the copies I have to that meeting. I don't have the entire river, just the panels that are in the city of Athens. If anybody on the Planning Commission is interested in reviewing those maps, I do have them in my office. Or if you want to see specific areas of it, I can create a quick map for you and email it to you as well. It'll be a long process. We're trying to schedule there's a required meeting, an open house with ODNR representatives to kind of kick this off, where people can review the maps and ask questions and just get general information on flooding. Trying to get that scheduled right now to get that moving as soon as possible. So that's all I had to report this morning, Mayor.
The only thing I have is that we are expecting to see WODA developments 3 and 4 to come at some point, hopefully soon, to the commission for review as a case, and then as a communication and as a case.
Great. And hopefully we will have WODA here, because I'm sure there's ample questions. Okay. Great. Thank you both. Announcements or other business. Actually, I missed one. Opportunity for citizens to speak on items not covered on the agenda. Anybody wishing to speak before the Planning Commission? No? Okay. Now, announcements and other business. The Planning Commission appointments to the Regional Planning Commission. I know that we have those. My executive assistant has brought that to my attention, that we have to appoint individuals to that. Is that something that we need to take care of today in terms?
I did attach what Paul emailed.
Right there.
It came up because this fall, the question of whether a city council rep needed to be appointed. And I think Paul can help you with.
We have, so the city of Athens, as members of the Athens County Regional Planning Commission, have 4 voting members for 4 seats on the commission with voting powers. Under the bylaws of the Athens County Regional Planning Commission, the city's 4 members are appointed by the City Planning Commission. The 2 current members of those 4 are myself and Mayor Patterson. Chris Fall was appointed as a member of Athens City Council. She's no longer serving for City Council. And our other member, Arian Smedley, she has since resigned. And so there's 2 vacancies on the Regional Planning Commission for the city of Athens. There's nothing in the bylaws of the Regional Planning Commission that say who those vacancies are. The Service Safety Director is already an ex officio member of the Regional Planning Commission, as is the city's engineer. So they are welcome to attend meetings as ex officio. We can ask them for guidance as needed and things like that. Historically, we have appointed typically a member of City Council, and for many years, Harry Katowski, who was a member of the city's Planning Commission, also served. And Nancy Bain had served on the Regional Planning Commission for a time as a member of the Planning Commission. I don't want to, my recollection with Member Bain not being present this morning is that she stepped down from the Regional Planning Commission because she had a conflict with some volunteer work she was doing. That was that same meeting day. The Planning Commission, Regional Planning Commission meets the second Thursday of every month at 8 a.m. So I don't think we have any action we need to do today, but if there's any interest or discussion about potential membership for the Regional Planning Commission, by all means.
So I would propose that we kind of take this as information and then maybe kind of brainstorm about people who might be good candidates, and then maybe solicit interest, and then at our next meeting, try to put forth a slate of folks that this body can appoint to the regional planning.
That's perfect. And since this is being broadcast live, anybody who's out there in TV land who's watching and is interested in serving on the Regional Planning Commission, or maybe one of our new city council members who is sitting in the back of the room with us today, we will get to work on that, and hopefully by our next meeting, we'll have a slate that we can bring forward and come up to full strength with the Regional Planning Commission. Thank you. Our next meeting is going to be January 20th, so 2 weeks from today, we will be meeting again. Other than that, I think all business of the Athens City Planning Commission has been fulfilled for today. And so therefore, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us in 2 weeks for the next Planning Commission.